I'm Brent Leary.
Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and you should know that by now because every Thursday at 3 p.m. East Coast time, we say these very exact words.
So, in fact, if you happen to miss this, you can go to any one we ever did for the last year and a half and get them caught up.
Yeah, a year and a half. You're right. It's about a year and a half.
Yeah. We are like a regular show now. We're broadcasting, not just live streaming.
You know, one of the things that I just realized,
Mm-mm.
I need a shave, man. Look, this is. I look like Grizzly Adams. I've never had this much hair on my face before.
It's not,
a little too
believe me,
much.
you're not at a Grizzly Adams level yet.
Or is it maybe just the Burl Ives stage?
Yeah, it's closer to Burl Ives. I would say
it
so.
Feels pretty.
Little.
Yeah, I'm gonna shave right after this, folks. Because
Are you gonna shave the whole thing?
No, I got to keep my goatee. I, you know how long I've had my goatee? So long that I don't remember not having my goatee. Like I think I might have been like 12 years old and had the goatee, sporting it.
Whoa!
I don't know, man.
Whoa! I can't do those things anymore. Actually, my beard now, if I let it grow, would be somewhere between light gray and white. It's pretty much going to look like that.
We can start the show now because
there he is.
Look at that. Rams and Giants fans.
He got it close. Giant fans, he said.
Oh, that's in other words, if you're 7 feet or taller,
that's what it means.
Personalized welcome.
Or else you like the grocery store.
Yeah. And blueberry bagels. Okay. Spin is. We don't even have to have a translation for that one, Sven. That's a good one.
Okay, Sven, your creativity knows no bounds. Mr. Gerber.
Ray Gerber, coming off the heels of the Happier Hour father-son meeting.
That was a second. We've had the Charleses, Eric Charles of Exactly and his Baylor graduate son, Robert. And now we've had Ray Gerber and his son, Caleb, who are combined 13 feet tall.
Yeah, didn't he say he was 6'7" or something like that?
Caleb 6'7", but Ray's like what? What do you Ray? 6'3", 6'2", 6'4".
Spin.
Can't argue with that, man.
Hello. Hi.
Malika.
Nice to see you. And look who else it is. Emma Flanagan.
Emma.
Tuning in from
How you
Columbus.
doing, Emma?
Yes.
Last time I saw Emma was at a Excel KKR event in Washington, D.C. She came.
How long ago was that?
Let's see, was it 2018 almost or 2019? I saw it at Salesforce. No, actually, I haven't since you joined Salesforce. Wow. No, I think it was 2019, because Emma would just graduated or was just graduating at that point, and we had lunch.
Yeah, a long time ago. Look, Easy Ed is in the house.
He's back from Albany. Welcome back, sir.
There he is. We missed you yesterday.
Yes, we did. We'll see you next week. I know that.
Yes, we are. Oh, look who else is in the house. Volker,
advisory board, Coveo, the man, taking Coveo to new heights himself.
All right. Got a good turnout. Let's see. Let's get one more in before we, what's up with the stream? Quality of video is poor. Huge audience.
I don't know. It's fine on our end, Sven. So could be your bandwidth. Could be your bandwidth.
He is tuning in from Germany, so maybe there's something going on there.
I don't know.
All right. One more from Emma. She's doing good. Good to hear it.
Yeah, 2019 it is. You got it, Emma. Whenever you're here, just let me know. Just let me know. We'll do it.
And I don't know the obligatory LinkedIn user. Somebody has security issues, but we're glad to see you anyway, whoever you are.
Just outside of Baltimore. Now, who would that be? It could be someone from 3C Logic, possibly.
I don't know, but Tina Gilmore says the video is fine. So if the video is fine, then if Tina says the video is fine, we have nothing to worry about.
She is our fierce defender. Look at that. Fine in capital letters and an exclamation point. Thank you, Tina.
Yes. And we got to say hello to
Hey, Mike, the man.
Well. All right. These people are definitely not all here to hear us. We've known them for years.
Not only that, half of them heard us yesterday. That's like way too much, to be honest.
Way too much. But you know what? It's just a bit of a special occasion because, first of all, whenever there's a special occasion, there's one thing I usually do on a special occasion, right? I break out a brand spanking
That's a nice hat.
Rams hat. This is first time ever wearing this one.
That is a really nice hat. I like that one a lot, actually. I have to say that's going to get my top 3 votes. Hey, Jeff.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It's that good. I really like it. I like the white mesh. I like the blue, the powder blue, and just the font they're using for the word Rams, and of course the logo looks damn good on that particular hat.
I like this one. You know what? The green one that I broke
out. Oh, whoa! Go to the private chat and look what Colin said about Rams.
Oh boy, we're gonna have issues, man.
Mm.
But it won't be that bad because if he had said something else about another team,
look at his next.
Okay.
Note.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to get this thing started because it apparently
I think so. We're gonna have to take about the original 8 minutes we were going to devote to the industry and hash out this football thing.
Yeah. So basically, this week's edition, we were going to go in a different direction. I forget exactly what direction that was.
Southeast.
We were going south, folks. But then this news came out on, I think it was Tuesday. It was only 2 days ago, right? It feels like it's been longer than that because that's what everybody's kind of been talking about. I mean, the happy hour, or I should say the happier hour. Yesterday, we spent the whole hour plus on one topic. And you notice how I said hour plus?
Yes. Well, oh, wow. That is insanely clever. But I say that as your, dear friend and partner here.
Andrew Nevis. Okay, that's who the LinkedIn.
That's who it is. Hey, Andrew.
All right. Okay, so
man.
so Tuesday morning or thereabouts. Actually, I heard about it from Ron Miller from TechCrunch because he sent me this link. Hey, I'm sure you already heard about this, but here, have you seen this? And I was like, I hadn't heard about this. It's like Salesforce Plus. Salesforce gets into the live streaming space, and of course, that ate up the whole 24-hour period. Actually, it's going on 48 hours at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, the happy hour, that's all we talked about. And so luckily for us, we have some good friends over at Salesforce.
Yes, we do. Wonderful friends. Especially, you have a picture of our dearest friend at Salesforce?
Here is our dearest friend at Salesforce.
That's our dearest friend at Salesforce. That's Minnie.
Minnie, whose proud owner, Ann Chen, of course, is one of our dear friends over there, along with Kathleen Obata and a host of thousands actually over at Salesforce. And so as soon as we saw this, first thing I shot the link to you, and then we pretty much had the same thought at the same time is, all right, can we get somebody from Salesforce on to talk about Salesforce Plus?
And we
know there's a lot of interest. There's going to be a lot of interest. And we're not just talking about us. We were definitely interested, but everybody's interested in this. So our buddies hooked us up. So we're going to go right to our guest. Usually we like to play around, but let's go to the guest. Let's go to Colin Fleming, who I just found out is
San Diego Chargers fan. Colin Fleming.
Charger. Yes, indeed.
Oh, well, that's all right.
But we
I'm
also
a Giants
know,
fan.
You're what do you SVP of, what do you call it? Brand experiences?
Brand marketing.
Global.
Brand marketing at
Wait a minute.
Salesforce.
Isn't it?
Actually,
I think your title is listed as SVP of Global Brand Experiences.
Yeah, that you're selling yourself short here, buddy.
You are. Like, you're a bigger deal than you think you are, right? So,
and not only that, in his spare time, He likes to drive these kind of things.
That's amazing. You know,
is that your just going around car? Is that the car you take from work and back?
Yeah, that's my daily driver. Yes, that's right.
So actually,
first of all,
before we get into this,
okay.
Well, no, you go ahead, Brent. I'll follow it up with my question.
I was just going to welcome him to the show. This is the first time we've had him on, and we don't know you. We've never talked to you at all. The only thing that we do know about you is that you're a Chargers fan, and for this show, things could be worse. So
we don't win anything. You don't have to worry about the Chargers.
No, you actually skated because you actually have answered the question you would have been asked. Right. So at the end of the show, you would have been asked, who's your favorite football team? And there's only one answer that means you're never invited back again. All right. So actually, well, let's get that right now. What team do you think that is?
Is it the Eagles?
No.
I hate them, but not as much as I hate this.
No. It's got to be the Patriots then.
There you go. You got it. If you answered that, this would be your first and last appearance on this show.
You don't have to worry about that.
Well, I mean, first of all, thanks for taking time, man. Yeah,
this is fun. I feel like I'm in the presence of celebrities here. I've followed you all for a long time, so this will be fun.
Oh, now we're in trouble. I have a question though. I've been dying to ask you since you were the Red Bull driver. So I'm wondering, did you like drink Red Bull? Or did you use that to fuel the car, or both, or what?
I've consumed a lot of Red Bull in my time, yes. But So I no longer do. Coffee is my preferred caffeinated beverage of choice, but yes, I've consumed more than my fair share of Red Bull in my time.
I literally saw it as car fuel, to be honest. I thought that was where you were going to go with this answer, but I don't know how you can drink that stuff. I'm not saying it's terrible tasting or anything. It's just like, it really does amp you through the ceiling.
It's very effective job, yes.
Yeah.
Well, so we had our weekly happy hour. That's Paul's name for it, the happy hour. And we usually talk about whatever anybody wants to talk about. I'll tell you right now, that whole solid hour was to talk about Salesforce Plus. What is it?
Yep.
What's it going to be? And also, so of course, like right before we ended the happy hour yesterday, I asked, so what's the one thing we should ask? But I'm going to go off the board and go with Jeff Risher, who was there. And, we got to, before we get into the serious stuff, favorite 70s TV show, 80s movie, and whether or not those will be available on Salesforce Plus.
I think we're going to go more modern. I was born in '84, so I don't think we have to go too far back, to be honest with you, Jeffrey. But we're going to stick to 2021 and beyond is what I'm thinking on the content side.
All right, folks. So, all right. Everybody wants to know exactly, what exactly is Salesforce Plus, and what was the thinking behind it and doing it right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think as with anything, it's a journey, right? The last 18 months has been a ride for any of us. And, of course, my team and I, and all of us at Salesforce spent a long time building up the events portfolio that is Dreamforce and our World Tour program and so many that we've had you at in the past. And, it's been said often that Salesforce is an events company that happens to sell software on the side, right? We think about in-person experiences. And when that didn't happen, when we had to pull away from that, we had to kind of, we had to pivot, right? It's an overused phrase, but it's exactly what we did. And we started with a program we called Leading Through Change, which is we've now done 70 episodes of. And we kind of asked ourselves, what would it mean if Salesforce would start to think and operate like a media company? And we did exactly that, where we started to produce kind of original content, think about real time, plan for 6 months and launch something. It was like every week there was a new topic we were thinking about and what's really important, what do people need to hear? And we started to quickly become a media company in a way. We started thinking about like a newsroom. And the genesis of that was just a very quick conversation, and we just started acting. We started by starting, as we like to say. And very quickly, we saw tremendous viewership, and we were helping people get through the pandemic and helping people in a new way. And there wasn't a whole lot of Salesforce content there. We were asking questions about, sort of what does the return to work look like and these kinds of things. And so a new strategy was born for us very quickly. And it was all around original content. And we started to do that. We started to think about content that made sense for more roles. And so what does it mean for have a marketing type of show? What does it mean for have a chief revenue officer show? And we started to think along these lines. And that was an interesting journey. We learned a ton. And then when we started thinking about having events come back in person to some degree, right, started thinking about inviting people in a way, we thought, how do these two environments come together? How do these live experiences and original content come together? And that was sort of an interesting conversation. We turned to a place that Salesforce always turns to, which is the consumer world, right? The company was founded on this whole premise of it should be as easy to use as it is to buy a book on Amazon. That was our saying in 1999. Or when Chatter came out, it was Facebook for the enterprise, right? And we've always turned to these consumer world analogies. And so we looked at Peloton and Netflix and said, that's the model. And what would Salesforce's model look like if we kind of looked after that and kind of got inspiration from there? And what you saw on Tuesday was our belief, what we think we've done it. And that's our first step in that direction. And we're pretty excited about it. The media certainly seemed like it was an interesting proposition, and we've been really thrilled with the response.
You know, it's fascinating to me. I mean, first of all, you know, congratulations on just aligning yourself with the way the universe is actually going. And well, it's not easy. I mean, most companies haven't done that yet. And the other thing I found fascinating about what you're doing, and really fascinating, is, and I actually think, I don't know if it was your press release or it was somebody generally called it, but it's they're calling it a live streaming service. I don't actually think that's what it is. I actually see that first of all, it's not live streaming, you're broadcasting, and that's live streams are part of broadcasting, but they're not the sole purpose. Secondly, just to show, even I got slightly confused at one point where I thought, oh, Salesforce Studio, that's a set of tools, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a studio. It's an actual physical studio with cameras and lights and things like that. But you're actually building, to me, and if I'm viewing it and putting in slightly traditional terms, you're building a network, like the equivalent of CBS Interactive or something like that, you know. And first of all, though, I will tell you, and I do think this is just, you might want to take this forward, is I think there's a lot of confusion about what's out there right now, because again, you're not actually building the Netflix for business. That's not what you're doing. If you had to pick one, it would have to be the YouTube for business, but because you're really not providing Netflix other than the fact it's original content, but that doesn't have to be in Netflix. And secondly, the other thing I think really fascinating to me is the potential for this thing long term. So given you're at the beginning of all this, and you have what sounds to be like, what is it, 4 consistent, regular shows that you're doing, are you looking at, if you're looking at a format, and again, you don't have to be too strict, because I know you're experimenting, because you're going to have to deal with things like people who consume TikTok and people who consume, you know, well, basically are in Clubhouse, and people who, you know, I don't know about consuming Clubhouse, but yeah, it is what it is. So, but you know, those things are important as the generational power shift begins or continues. And I know you're thinking that way because I know how Salesforce thinks. So my question becomes, are you looking at this as sort of an evolving network? Are you looking at it as something that will involve content that isn't purely business specific? Are you looking at it? And third, how are you looking at it from the standpoint, you'll know the question, so say it, from the standpoint of entertainment value? Literally that. Yeah. So those 3 things. Evolving network.
There's lots of.
That'll take us to the end of the show.
How much time do we have? So you know, look, I draw back to the inspiration, right? We think about Netflix, and to your point, I think what we're doing is slightly different than that, but I think there are related elements. And you look at Peloton, I think Peloton is maybe the primary source of our inspiration, where you look at live content, and you know, as much as we think that people come to a conference like Dreamforce for the food or for the entertainment, they come for the content. They come to learn and get better at their roles, right? From a reskilling perspective, and from to get better at their opportunity, at their whatever job they may have. And we're not, that's not lost on us. I think it's really, really important. So I think a lot of the content you'll see inside Salesforce Plus will have an entertainment value to it. It's not going to be white papers translated to videos. There'll be smiles and winks and nods to it, right? But it will be in the premise of helping people get better at their jobs. You're going to see content built for particular roles. So you're going to see a series for chief revenue officers and marketers and heads of service and C-level executives, and very thoughtful in this way in terms of preparing this experience to really be a business-oriented environment, but to really help people, upskill and be better at their job. So that's first and foremost the key thing here is content first. We started with studios, we started with our efforts, and then we built the sort of technology around it to kind of surface it and be the user experience for it. So we think content wins. And we've seen that play out with Netflix, who are spending $1 billion a year in annual programming. And we've seen that with some of these companies, right? So we had to think content first. That was really important. The second part of this is how do we bring the magic of those live experiences into a digital environment, right? And so that's where it's not going to be, we often say inside Salesforce that it's not digital translation, it's digital transformation, right? So we're not going to just translate the 30-minute calendared sessions that you see at Dreamforce or these events into an online audience. The average duration of some of these shows is 11 minutes. So it's going to be more modern oriented. It's not going to be operating in a 30-minute time window. We're going to be thoughtful about that because we've seen this with TikTok and we've seen this with so much of the content. Our attention spans are shorter than ever before. So we are being thoughtful about that. That being said, we are replicating the ideas of series and episodes. So the entire Salesforce Plus experience will be series and episodes. And so we'll be launching series and then there'll be seasons within that. So we've launched Leading Through Change. You've seen Simply Put seasons from us, things like that. So that will continue and you'll see that manifest itself in the experience as well. You had lots of questions. I think I addressed maybe one or two of them, but maybe you can tell me what I missed.
Well, actually, that leads to the sort of a permutation of it, which is, okay, given what you just said, okay, let's call it episodes and series aimed at particular audiences and presenting content of it better. But is there going to be something like the Colin Fleming show, which is not quite the same, right?
No.
But if you're building out that kind of network environment, network presence, is something that people do actually enjoy coming to and learning from. I mean, if you think about most podcasts, 90% of them are the somebody show, really, right? Yeah. Even if they have a name like, Revolutions in History, it's with Mike Duncan, but Mike Duncan's who you're listening to because there's a million podcasts on history, right? So are you looking in that kind of direction too? There's a lot of possibilities of what you got there.
For sure. Well, it's certainly not going to be the Colin Fleming show because I'm too busy building the experience. So it's not going to be that. But yes, you'll see a lot of our content is hosted of the hosted variety. So we'll have our Connection series is hosted by our CMO, Sarah Franklin. Our Inflection Point series is hosted by Monica Langley. And here comes my son, who's 2 and is hanging out at the house today. So, hi, James.
Bring him on in.
This is James.
Hey, James.
Hi,
James.
Prince and Paul.
Hi.
Is that Spider-Man I see on his
Spider-Man? Is that Spider-Man? Yeah.
Oh God, that's my favorite. I love Spider-Man.
So I think a big portion of it will be host driven. One second.
Okay. No, it's okay.
Stay up there.
He's gonna hang out with us if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Host driven is important, right? I think that's not all of our programming will be host driven, but you will see a lot of personality in there. And it won't be exclusively dedicated to Salesforce employees or Salesforce. We're going to see celebrities in there. We've had Emmanuel Acho as one of the hosts for series. We've had Val Ashfar. We've had all kinds of individuals that can be part of this programming. So very much part of our thinking. We're also thinking about partner involvement. So how do we bring some of our most strategic partners into the conversation, right? And I know that was a lot of the questions coming out from our press release was what's the long term here? And we definitely see companies like, insert your partner here, insert your sort of vendor here and do an interesting environment. So I think it's a big part of our strategy.
I gotta just. Oh.
And this is Shannon, and that's James.
Sorry, hi.
Shannon.
Oh,
Hi.
hey, nice to
How you
see you.
doing?
Did you say bye-bye?
This is the pandemic world we live in right now.
Bye, James. Bye, Spider-Man.
Yes, I would suggest a show for James, but
James is ready. He's as long as Spider-Man is there, he's ready to go.
All right. So, are you looking at your job as like? And I know this is kind of old school, like a Brandon Tartikoff kind of thing. Do you feel like you're like a network producer? Are you looking at, like CNBC, the content over there, looking at how it might work on your channel, so to speak? Do you see competition from, traditional kind of broadcast programming from a business perspective? How are you kind of trying to capture what is all out there and then present it in a way that makes sense for the kind of audience you're going after?
I don't think of myself or my role as a network producer type of environment, but there are elements of that are creeping in as you start to think about programming and as you think about sort of, the broadcast environment. I think that's really fascinating. We're going to do this a little differently. And a lot of the programming you'll see come from Salesforce is going to be driven by sort of inputs from our customers. So one of the questions we have internally is, should we implement the idea exchange for content on Salesforce Plus? Should we have this crowdsourced to a degree? What does our community want to hear? What are the most pressing questions out there? And what you'll see in Salesforce Plus initially is very, very highly produced content. It could live on a Netflix, and we're really proud of that. But I don't think that's the exclusive part of it. We're thinking we could spin up things in a matter of hours. Should a question happen in the community? Should something happen in the world of technology? Things like that we think we can be more rapid fire. So I think there's going to be quick turn newsroom style programming, as well as more planned out, programming to a degree as well. So I think we're really fascinated about that. I think the key thing here, and you've seen this from Salesforce in the past, and it'll continue to be true, is we have, roughly 10 shows that we're going to be launching with. Plus, when Dreamforce launches, over 100 hours of on-demand content from all the magic that you would expect to see at Dreamforce. That's going to be the initial play. Shortly from thereafter, you're going to see podcasts in there. We've got one of the highest performing business podcasts in the world right now called Blazing Trails. Nice plug. Things like that will give us the opportunity to continue to sort of add new types of media in here, bringing in partnerships, we're going to steer away from advertising. We don't think this is an advertising driven model. We think this is going to be a model that is very open to our community. It's a simple subscription with your Trailblazer ID. So if you have access to our Trailblazer community, have access to our ID exchange or app exchange, you get into Salesforce Plus free of charge. There's no fees of any sorts. And really it's here to help us build a new type of media program. And you can only see that furthering when you think about Trailhead and how do we think about upskilling in a video format. The roadmap is rich for us, and we're pretty excited to get started.
So on the Dreamforce side of this thing, since you're launching, so last year, if I remember correctly, when you did Dreamforce Track, you were using Kaltura as your platform, and that was a combination of video and also event management, which is part of it. Because the one thing that did suggest itself, which was, although it was a little unclear, was the event side of what you're talking about. So let's say you have, as you said, hundreds of hours of Dreamforce content coming through on Salesforce Plus and Salesforce Live. But what about the event, the actual management of the event itself? Because that's part of it. But there's one of the things that wasn't terribly clear in the press release, and was the actual management of all this. Because what you're doing to me is fascinating and a big deal. And I think, if I'll put it this way, it's the first, to my knowledge, and I have pretty good knowledge on it, the first genuinely fully organized attempt at this. I will tell you, if I'm going through the history of enterprise software and technology, SAP used to do this in an ad hoc way at Sapphire a lot, right? And with Sapphire and other things, they would run actually broadcast style shows. You go all the way back, and Brent's referenced it yesterday. Yeah, Microsoft with MSNBC, and you go in the partnership. So, and then there's been different kinds of things, but at the same time, attempts at enterprise technology companies working in a broadcast, working to broadcast content, right? And I think what makes you different is that you're fully organized, and this is ongoing, and there's nothing ad hoc about it, really. And that's actually important, really important, because you'll be able to sustain it over time and evolve it over time. And that's fundamentally critical. So the thing that I wonder about, though, is all of that has to get managed. Like we do the Playaz, smaller show by comparison, let's say, and I'm launching a new series that's very different in the about a month, which is going to be literally in the format of a late night talk show, which is nothing like the industry's seen. But I'm learning what it takes to just manage that. And I'm literally doing one person doing this. Okay. And just, I'm literally, producer, director, host, showrunner. I'm everything in this thing. And the scope you're talking about is staggering. So how's the management of this thing, to the extent you can talk about it, how's the management of this thing even set up? I mean, do you have people who are doing all those technical and business things, like a showrunner type of person, or those kind of people? Wow.
Yeah, we've brought in talent from ABC News, from CBS Interactive. We've brought in talent from the media industry, let's say, to help guide us on that. And that's been very intentional. We've also built the platform in a new paradigm, right? The idea of an event type of software managing this, we think that we don't think that you translate an in-person event to a digital audience. We think that's a flawed methodology. We think that this is, we think that the media consumption models, the Netflix and the Pelotons of the world, have showed us what the world wants to consume this content in, and we've modeled that more than anything. So I think that's really, really important for us. In terms of the management of itself, we have two things. We've hired a lot of media talent. We do have this idea of broadcast producers and showrunners and these kinds of things. And we've also built the technology fully on Salesforce, which is another thing I'm proud about. This runs on Heroku with Lightning Web Components. This is running in a Salesforce organization. And we're really proud of that. We run through video players that are, partners of ours, but really proud of this working on Salesforce. And that's really, really impressive for us, important for us.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. Can you talk a little bit about, we had a conversation with a couple of folks last week over at Contently, and we asked them about how has this whole digital transformation process and what the pandemic has done to accelerate it. Yeah. How has that made content? How has that changed the view of content internally from like an organizational structure, from a strategy or strategic value? Because when I think about what you guys are doing here, how central is Salesforce Plus going to be in the content that you create? How central is that going to be to the traditional side of the Salesforce business? Like when a new cloud comes up, are they going to be like, hey, we need a show over here on Salesforce Plus to talk about, the new cloud? How central has what you're doing is it to what's been the traditional role for Salesforce?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Brent. I think one of the big things that we're doing is we're going to try to keep the altitude at a certain level, where it's not initially going to go into particular product features or functionality. We're going to keep this at a role-based type of programming. So there's going to be content that is, Salesforce relevant, but it's not going to be, let me tell you about the latest features of Sales Cloud. It's going to be very thoughtful on this thing. Yeah, thank goodness, right. You get plenty of that on salesforce.com, so it won't be a problem. No, but I think we are thinking about this truly in the way that Trailhead has really shown up, which is really just helping people get better at their jobs, upskill, reskill, and we're going to think about this in a video format. A couple of things we've seen also in this pandemic is, content, 30-minute content windows or an hour-long pieces of content don't work any longer, which is why I think I can look back at this, but I think our average duration of some of these shows is 11 minutes, maybe even slightly less. And so we think that that's really, really important. It's going to be bite-sized content that we hopefully are binge-worthy, meaning we're going to entice you to watch more and more of them. That's really, really important for us. And then, it's just making the content interesting. This phrase that gets thrown around there, edutainment, which I kind of hate, but I'm going to use it here, which is, we're not going to be building, below deck on Salesforce Plus. This is going to be business-focused content with a particular set of roles that you would expect from Salesforce. But it's going to be content that is, you can sit back on with a glass of wine in your hand and watch. And I think that's really unique in this industry where, you're going to hear, we have an episode that we launched in our CMO series called Connections with Laird Hamilton. It's not just your run-of-the-mill CMOs. We're going to throw a little zig and a little zag at you. And we think that's important because business-to-business content sucks. There is nothing interesting happening there. And,
Amen.
we could, there's a better way, and we want to at least prove that indication. And I'm really proud of the way that we pivoted to this Leading Through Change content series earlier in the year and early last year. We won content marketing program of the year as a result of that. And so it shows that there's appetite for this new type of content, and we're just going to double down on it.
Well, from the standpoint of, you actually have a history with that too, with what you did with Trailhead in the earlier days, especially. It was brilliant. I mean, it was not just training, but it was training. It was memorable because of the the humanization of it all, and just the fact that you had actual people presenting to actual people, not just abstractions. And so it really resonated. You had that guy Mike, who used to run a radio show for you from Dreamforce in the admin center. Mike Goldberg. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was on that show twice, and I was watching the Trailhead admins who were in the area, and they were like entranced, man. They were packing the place, and we were just broadcasting from a stage, with a couple of mics. And just so you guys are already kind of, when Trailhead really was, to me, like a forerunner of the kind of stuff you're talking about now, and you've already got some history with it, which should, let's say, portends a great deal of success at doing this thing.
Well, I think Trailhead is a pretty big peer to what we're doing here, and I think we've built some structure behind the scenes to allow those two experiences to eventually come together, right? So as you log into Trailhead, it's the same login to Salesforce Plus. So you have one common identity. You can bounce back and forth between the experiences. I think it's only a matter of time before you see cross-pollination of the programming and being thoughtful in that way too. So I wish we could all have it fully featured and ready to go, but we're going to call this an MVP, but our vision is still big.
Hey, okay. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, traditional media companies. You already threw out the advertising. You're not focused on that, but the data that comes from, especially these live streaming, all this digital data that you get from what people watch, how long they watch it, what they think about what they watch. That's a lot of great data that could be used potentially, for insights. And of course, you guys have Einstein. So how does that kind of fit with Einstein, and what kind of information do you foresee maybe that you haven't been able to get because you didn't have this kind of network in the past, but now you're going to be able to have lots of information on people. What are they interested in? How long they watch, feeding that into Einstein. What do you foresee in that in terms of insights that could be used, to get more programs to understand how viewers can become customers, or what's the plan around that?
Yeah. Well, I think, clearly in the marketing industry, there's a pretty big effort happening around this cookieless future, right? So every company has to be thinking about building a first-party data model where some of the tips and tricks that us marketers have built over the last decade are very quickly going to be irrelevant. And that's going to force companies into a different world. And this is our strategy. We think that it is a first party data model for us where, if you look at Salesforce, if you go to Salesforce's website today, we're very good at capturing your information and getting you on the phone with a Salesforce representative. We're very highly proficient at that. However, we think that there's a higher level than that where we start to educate you in terms of how people are using Salesforce, what that looks like, how CMOs are tackling this new pandemic, how chief executive officers are doing that. And there's more of an educational, higher part of the funnel conversation that we want to be part of. And so it's as simple as you go to Salesforce Plus, all we need is essentially your email address, and you have full access to everything within the Salesforce ecosystem. And our goal here is to educate you. And if you so choose that this is of interest to you, we'll make it easy for you to do so, of course. But it's really about identifying a first-party data model where we start to build a relationship with you. It's not a transactional relationship. It's just a relationship. And we want to feed you really healthy, great content. It's going to come from Salesforce Plus. It'll come from Trailhead. We're tracking that behind the scenes with our CDP. Of course, we're watching behavioral, and we're watching heat maps in terms of where the interests lie and what general role or what general product is driving attention. And that drives our content behavior. That drives a lot of our efforts. It's how we think about bringing content to Dreamforce. So when we thought about programming Dreamforce, which we're in the middle of now, September 21st to the 23rd, we get a chance to really look at what the behavior is happening on our website and with content and say, hey, we need to bring more customer success content or more digital transformation content, whatever it may be, based on that behavior. So very early on, Brent, to answer your question, it's going to be driving terms our content models and what that looks like. Behind the scenes, however, we are thinking about how do we build a first-party data model that will allow us to build a relationship, a more enduring relationship with our client, with our customers and partners, and give them the content that they want. And we firmly believe that if we bring the right content and bring the right thought leadership, and of course the product's good enough, that the transactions will happen down the road.
So, okay, you talk about your customers and your partners, but there's a much larger audience out there who are not customers or partners, and right now, you haven't really spoken to the access they will have, because ultimately, as well as I do, it's not all about lead gen. It's about being a trusted advisor to people who aren't necessarily your customers, and then they ultimately become those. Yeah. So, how are you going to approach? Hi, we're not Salesforce yet at all, but we're really interested, or we're interested enough to want to see some things. Are you going to have limited access, unlimited access, special times where you can get it unlimited? Or what's the model going to look like there?
Yeah, most of the content at launch, Paul, will be completely open. There's no users, no login required. As we start to think about Dreamforce and some of the more proprietary content, there will be a login requirement there. Okay. But it is as simple as your email address and your name. You can even use your personal email address if you choose. If you go to our Trailblazer community, it's the same identity service that you'll see there. So most of you already have access to that. You might not know it yet. So I think it is very high level. In fact, a lot of the content, you won't even hear the word Salesforce. It is very intentionally about a role and about thriving in this new normal and this all digital work from anywhere world. And I think that's really, really important. So it's not going to be heavy-handed. That's really, really important to us. As you get into Dreamforce, you're going to get more particular content that's around, our particular clouds, or you getting better to a particular role. But very thoughtfully, it's going to be pretty high level initially, and that's very much intentional.
Okay, great. Because that makes the most sense. That the default is the general population, so to speak.
Right. That being said, I think one of the pieces of feedback I got from our announcement, while the headlines were the Netflix for business, that's a great headline. Our intention is to stay focused on the professional in a particular set of roles. We're not trying to compete in a mass market environment. We're going to build content for salespeople, for marketers, for service people, for commerce individuals, for C-level executives. That's our focus. That is what you expect. We have the brand permission to operate in that environment, and that's exclusively what we're going to do. The only thing that I would add that would carry over from that is, you've heard the word Trailblazers from Salesforce a lot. We have these incredible administrators and developers and marketers that have done really amazing things in their careers. We're going to highlight that. And I saw some questions come in around user-generated content. You're going to start to see, individuals like Cheryl Feldman or some of these incredible stories that happen in the Salesforce community be able to contribute stories within Salesforce Plus about their world and just helping others. And I think that's one of the really important things as part of this is really it's about lifting other people up, and that's a big part of our journey as well.
Amazing. What's been the most difficult part of this whole process, or maybe the most surprising element?
I would say because it is a consumer world analogy, people understand the user experience part of it really easily. Oh yeah, I get series and episodes. That's a concept we're all familiar with because we all watch Netflix in the evening or whatever it may be. So that has been easier than we thought. I think convincing people that this will work in a business setting is, anytime you're breaking the mold on something, that's harder to get by. So even writing the press release was one of the more challenging things because it's but wait, do we have the brand permission to do this? And why would this be coming from Salesforce? And I think just getting people over the sort of the hump of this can work in a business setting, and there's a big vision here. And I think that's, as status quo dies hard. And I think that's a big part for us. And, the good news is it seems to have resonated. I think the pickup on social and in the press has been very strong, not snarky in the lightest. We got a couple Netflix and chill comparisons, which were sort of interesting. But I think, I think what's really important is we continue to go back to Salesforce's tried and true consumer world analogies to drive the world of business forward. I'm not inspired by Microsoft, Oracle, and SAP. I do not care what they do. I'm not interested in anything that they're doing. I'm looking at what are the people watching ESPN Plus or Disney Plus are the same people buying CRM the next day. There is no difference here. So that consumption model is really important for us, that we just follow familiar patterns with really great content, and we think that will be a successful formula.
Well, I mean, so you're going to have Jason Sudeikis on?
I just watched Ted Lasso this morning. I would love to have Jason Sudeikis on. I think that's outside of our budget range at this moment, but we'll talk to our friends at Apple and see what happens.
Give us, what may be the most surprising person or subject or topic that might end up being on Salesforce Plus?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. We've started to get a lot of interest in terms of, I had a musician contact me yesterday after we made the announcement. He's like, I need to be on your platform. It's like a local Los Angeles area traveling musician. So wow. I think that maybe our press release could have been more specific as to what our audience was looking for. But I think there's a fine line of appealing, selling the vision, right? And so I think what you're going to see is very inspirational content about particular roles, right? How marketers can be better at their job, things like this. But I think you'll start to see very interesting kind of collaborations. So we had Emmanuel Acho in hosting one of our series. I mean, we've had dialogues with Matthew McConaughey. We've had certain things like that. So I think you'll start to see a little celebrity firepower from Salesforce. I think it's kind of one of our key tenets of the way we show up, and I think that'll be sort of interesting. So we've got some plans for that. I think you're going to see, the idea of cross-pollinating between, wouldn't it be great to see a series between a CIO and a brand level marketer, and really understanding the dynamics. I go toe to toe with our CIO often in terms of what is really a priority. And so just really looking at the mixture of dynamics and roles here that I think is kind of fascinating. So I don't know if that's exactly the answer to your question, Brent, but I think that there's some interesting things that we've got cooking up.
Are you going to have the Velocitors play on Salesforce Bandstand?
I can assure you that our characters will be present. I'm not so sure. We'll get there. We'll have to see.
Well,
can I send
you got a good band.
Yeah, I want to send a shout out to Leah McGowan Hare. I saw some of her content and some of the conversations. The Coach K one, yeah, she does a great job. She should have a show. I'll put in a plug for her to get.
She does. She's the host of our Leading Through Change series. She's amazing.
All right.
Okay. Now there it is. That makes
I got the best.
I think it's an important point. It's kind of guidance for most companies. There's a lot of great content being produced out there in the world today. Yes. We looked at it, we're like, we have so much bloody content, and it's all great, but it's spread all over the company and people. And so we thought, what is a singular destination for this to come through? And of course, we have a vibrant YouTube channel. We have over 200,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel. That will continue to happen, and that's really important for us. But we can't really personalize the experience, and you can't, frankly, build a first-party data model off of YouTube. And so how do we think about, providing exclusive content on Salesforce Plus that is super helpful for the customers, not for us? I think the days of business-to-business content where you're like, I've got this great piece of content, but you got to give me your firstborn in order to watch it, is a legacy model that has to die with this. Yeah. And we have to be thinking about helping first, not helping the customer or the attendee or the viewer first, not the company. And I think it's just a pretty big cognitive shift that we have to make.
You know what? Honestly, to your point, I think ultimately there is amazing amount of really good content being produced and consumed. The big issue is neither end. It's the middle, which is distribution, right? That actually is the fundamental issue here. And, there are companies that are extremely well positioned out there for creation and consumption, but distribution's everyone's whole. And what you're actually doing is one of the first big steps I've seen to solving the distribution, or let's say to taking care of the distribution. I don't want to say solving it. There's a lot of other things involved. Because, honestly, because what you're doing is completely aligned with the fact that content now, it used to be king. Now it's kind of heading into God territory. Distribution omnichannel becomes a really, really different concept than it used to be. And distribution is where omnichannel is, right? So what you're doing by this kind of aggregation, consolidation, focus, and direction is, I think, super important, both not just for Salesforce, but for the entire industry to understand the biggest issue at hand. And I don't doubt you'll have others following your lead on doing this kind of thing? Maybe not at your scale and scope, because you are known for doing a lot of things at big scale and lots of scope. But understanding that you're the first large company I know taking steps to solve an issue that's a monster issue for the next decade at least.
Right. You mentioned, Paul, distribution, and my team will kill me for sharing this story, but we looked at sort of the launches of Disney Plus, and we looked at, all these companies that have been doing this. And, one of the things that Disney Plus did really well was they launched Hamilton at the same time of Disney Plus. And it was this incredible forcing function. Like, I got to find, if I want to watch that, I got to be involved in this. And so I think that was really important. And that was very strategic for them. We have this incredible brand and asset in Dreamforce. And we're doing the same thing with Dreamforce. Dreamforce is our Hamilton moment, which is the way we're referencing it, right? Which is, how do we create a moment in time that brings, subscribers and this thoughtfulness, but we keep them around with really great content that helps them in their role. There's has edutainment associated with it. I'm going to stop myself from using that word very quickly.
Right.
I think that's a big part of it. So, the distribution, I think, is where, the NBCs and the Netflix of the world, these large media companies, are very thoughtful, and the distribution part is. And we're an enterprise software company. We don't know what we're doing in that context, but we are looking for, we are finding a way through it with just being smart and watching the world very closely.
So you're going to forget Jason Sudeikis, Lin-Manuel Miranda now?
Don't count it out, Paul. We're not there.
I wouldn't. I love that man.
Right.
I love that man. If you have him on, I will literally give you a video I shot in Times Square in New York, where he just showed up one day with a bunch of people and started singing and playing, right? Just in the middle of Times Square out of nowhere. That video alone is like the best thing I ever saw.
You've been to Dreamforce enough, Paul. There's a little firepower there. So we will make sure that comes to Salesforce Plus.
That's my vote. My vote's for him.
Okay.
So basically what we're talking about is just the evolution of customer experience, customer engagement, finding, catching, and keeping customers, using content to do this in a different way than it was before.
I think so. I mean, there is a paradigm shift happening in marketing to being helpful. You see this with incredible companies. Shopify is a great example we reference. I probably shouldn't say that phrase, but they're a reference for us. They produce, half the content they produce is just about helping people start up mom and pop flower shops. There's no incentive for Shopify. They might stand up their shop on Shopify, but it's just about being helpful. And, I think from us, we've started to head that direction too with Leading Through Change. You didn't hear the word Salesforce and Leading Through Change almost the entire 70 episodes that we held. It was about helping people get through the pandemic and being curious about what others are doing. And I think that is we're building a brand here. We're not building a demand gen strategy. And I think that's important. Demand gen comes, and that's important for us. We are a for-profit business, but it's really important that we build a community of people that turn to us for help. And if we can help them, and we have a brand now that we think that can do exactly that. And that's really, really important. I feel collectively, and you see this with so many companies, if we do that well, the business comes. So
given that we only have a few minutes left, I want to take this somewhere else entirely. I'm still curious, A, how you got to be a Red Bull driver, and B, how you went from Red Bull driver to Salesforce. That's even more amazing. So take it away.
I'll give you the third. Alan can help. I have a very interesting background. I was a race car driver starting at 8 years old. I raced go-karts. I moved my way up. I moved to Europe at a very young age. I was chosen for Red Bull's Formula One racing team as their test driver for the Formula One team.
Wow.
And it was a very enjoyable period of my life, of course. I was living in Austria. I competed in over 20 countries worldwide. Very, very fun role. 2008 happened. The financial crisis hit, and the program I was in canceled, and everybody went their merry ways. And I actually, during that period, I had worked at Red Bull as a marketing manager. And one of the first jobs that they asked me to do was find a CRM system. And I remember very vividly, I was on my BlackBerry under the table Googling what a CRM was. And I can't believe I'm telling Brent and Paul this, but I Googled what CRM was, and I deployed Salesforce very quickly within a small sub-brand within Red Bull. And it kind of just clicked in my head to a degree. I just sort of like got it. I don't know why. It just sort of institutionally worked. And if I wasn't going to be racing for Red Bull, it didn't make sense for me to be in Austria. So I'm like, hey, Salesforce, hiring? And 16 interviews later, somebody, our CMO at the time, decided to make a bet on a race car driver from from Europe. And I've been here for 11 years now and held a variety of roles, and it's been a fun journey.
Wow. So wait, who was the CMO at that time?
Craig Swensrud.
Of course.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Man.
Yeah.
Good guy. Really good guy.
Very talented.
So we're coming close to the end here. A year from now, what is success going to look like for Salesforce Plus?
People viewing the contents, Brent. No, I think our objective here is to build a community of people that are interested in this type of content and to give them the helpful concept that they focus on. There's a couple things. One is success of Salesforce Plus will be viewers, and a big part of that will be the success of Dreamforce this year. And Dreamforce is a big bet for us, of course, and we're watching that closely and planning for it, and we're really excited for that. So that'll be the kickstart of really Salesforce Plus's momentum will happen it'll start at Dreamforce. And the key objective internally is, do people keep coming back? Can we entice people that, Dreamforce is a couple of days, but will they come back the week next to learn about whatever X, Y, and Z role or XYZ Trailblazer has done? And that's really important for us, that we get a more reoccurring type of sort of viewership here. But we're certainly not done. You're going to see we have 4 releases happening in the next 6 months, all kinds of new features and functionality. Much of it will be familiar. You're going to see podcasts in there. You're going to see net new series in there. You're going to see new media types in there. And I think that's really, really important for us. But really, the ultimate objective is, do people keep coming back? And that's important for us.
All right. So I guess final question is so one of the things and theme that Brent and I have both harped on and manifested, we hope, pretty well, which is interactivity has to reach a whole different kind of level now, which is much more toward participation than it is toward just leaving comments on things, right? So how are you actually beginning to approach that? Because, there's a viewer and then there's someone who's, you use 2 words, community and viewer, right? Mm-hmm. Which aren't necessarily the same thing. So my question is, how do you get community through interactivity and participation versus a viewer who's passively watching and absorbing and learning maybe, but they're not truly participating, which means their likelihood of coming back is decreased, even if they did get something out of what they got. What do you do on the level of making it more interactive, more participatory, and evolving, the platform that way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot to be developed there, unpacked there. I don't think that you wouldn't say Netflix has built a community. You would say Peloton has. And so I think Peloton has a really interesting dynamic that we're watching very closely, and we've kind of really leveraged a lot of their thinking and some of the way we're approaching this. A big part of our focus is identity-based marketing, right? You have a simple login. You want to go to the Trailblazer community. You want to go to Salesforce Plus. You want to go to Trailhead. You want to go to the Idea Exchange. You want to go to the App Exchange. One login, make it easy for you. You don't have to worry. Google's done a great job at this too, as well. And so really thinking about identity-based marketing. Really, you're not going to like my answer. It's about building valuable content. And we think the reason why Netflix has grown is because they build amazing content and they've made it really easy for people to consume it. And there is not rocket science in modern day marketing, in my opinion. It is exactly that formula. If you build great content and you make it easy for them, people will come. And I think that's really, really important for us. And that's where our focus is almost exclusively.
All right. I'll be pushing you in other directions if I can, though. Don't worry.
It's all good. I'm here for it.
You can count on it.
As with anything, this is a nascent vision. We're very early. You're going to see a Dreamforce, an MVP that is very thoughtfully designed in terms of what is available. But the biggest scare for us is we just add so much feature-rich functionality to it. It's not intuitive. So it's going to be very simple, and that's intentional.
You're on a great path. I mean, you really are.
Thank you.
It's just genuinely, and you, by the way, also thank you for clarifying things too, because I will be honest, the press release didn't really clarify a whole lot. It gave an indication of what was going out, but it was kind of all over the place. And I think what you did is just really clear it up.
It led to all these questions that we had today, but you answered them all.
I just wanted to be on y'all's show, so that's what we needed to do.
It was cool.
Yeah,
cool guy.
And this last comment here. So Salesforce Plus would be the network, and CRM Playaz is a franchise.
You'd think we planted that one, except Ed's one of your partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's
Well,
something to leave
at
you
some
with.
point, I could see CRM Playaz on Salesforce Plus. I think we can
That
find
would
a
be
way to
funny.
make
That would be funny.
This is being recorded, folks. So.
Yes, by the way,
that happen.
Hey, Colin, this has been great.
amazing.
We had so many questions. You answered them all, and you can see throughout the whole show comments
That's
are
great.
flying in. So
Still
we
are.
appreciate it, and we are definitely going to be keeping our eye on this because that's kind of what we do around here.
September 21st, Dreamforce is live, so we hope you're there and get a chance to feel it for yourself.
I am. Look, the other thing I would love to see someday, if I can actually show up in person somewhere, is the actual studio. Like, I am fascinated by the fact you have it, right? And I've seen enterprise studios, but they're just rooms with equipment.
Our studio is an almost direct replica of the Mandalorian studio that they built.
Really?
We have invested aggressively in our studio programming and infrastructure. We'll do a behind the scenes little thing before we get started. But we have built a truly world-class studio, and we're really proud of it.
That's cool.
I'll tell you what, if you're up for it someday, how about we do a Playaz episode where you take people behind the scenes?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All
It's
right,
ready.
consider it
Live
done.
now.
Wait,
Consider
we
it
only
done.
do it if you dress up as the Mandalorian.
I don't think we're quite there, but yes, sounds good.
Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda will do the tour. Right,
And
so-
thanks for letting James crash your party too. I'm sure he enjoyed it.
Oh, he was awesome. I'm a Spider-Man fan anyway, so I'm now a fan of your son.
Absolutely.
I'm just glad he was wearing pants when he came in. That was just my
And on that note, on behalf of Colin Fleming, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz, and we're going to go out on a little different note today.
Ooh. Oh, it's a lot better than the note we normally go out.